And wisdom for us to apply to our relationship. Well, we thought it would be great, since it's Valentine's, to sit down with our very own pastors and find out what they have done to have a successful marriage over the last 33 years. Would y'all be interested in hearing their answers? Awesome.
Hey, thanks. Thanks so much, Clayton. I don't know about me being a marriage expert, but here we go.
Well, first of all, happy Valentine's Day. And happy Valentine's Day to everyone else. And, you know, it's the one day that the world sets aside to celebrate love and to celebrate relationships. But Pastor Victoria, could you talk a little bit about how you guys choose to celebrate love every single day and maybe how it's changed over the years for you guys?
Okay, that's great. That's a loaded question and a really, really good one too. Where did y'all come up with that? No. You know, you do have to choose. You do have to make a choice every single day. And Joel and I will be married 34 years in April. So, you know, I really think there's several things, but maybe some of the things that one or two things that I can say is that, you know, I think that when you study someone and you find out what they like, you find out what they don't like, and you are willing to give them those things that they like. You know, sometimes we find ourselves giving what we want. But we can't give what we want. We have to give what the other person wants. And so I think over these years I've studied, especially early on, I studied Joel and I wanted to give him, you know, what he wanted. I wanted to do the little things that would please him, make those deposits in his life. And so I think that's one thing that has been really helpful for me, especially in many of the transitions that have happened in our life. And we've done a lot of things together from the very beginning, and I think we've learned to grow together. And I think one reason is I know what makes him mad. And I know when I can make him mad. The truth is, you know, I know what does make him angry, and I know when to pull back, and I know when to stop doing those things or not do them at all. But I know what he likes, and I know, you know, how I can care for him. So I think that helps a lot. I mean, there's 1,000 things. I'll tell you another really important thing, girls, is watch what you're thinking about your husband. Just watch what you're thinking. You may not say it because you know better, but what you think will eventually come out. As the heart thinks, the mouth speaks. And so I just encourage you, when you hear this dialogue about all the things he's doing wrong and how he needs to do better, and you can go on, and I don't need to go into all that. But, you know, you need to stop it. You need to just stop it right there and not give that place and begin to start saying what you want in your mind and not what you think you have. So I think that's really important as well.
I'm so naive. I think she's always thinking good things about me.
Okay, Pastor Joel, I have a question for you. You spoke a message a few years ago called Healed Through Humility that I took so many notes on. We've used it in our messages. We've used it when we spoke with couples. But you had this one statement that you said, the healing for your relationship begins in your humility. Every couple we've talked to, no matter what the conflict is, it always boils down to pride. So I would love for you to expound on that statement because I thought it was so powerful. The healing for your relationship begins in your humility.
Well, Ashley, I think it's what you said. You know, to have good relationships, you have to swallow your pride. You have to be willing to bite your tongue and, like Victoria said, not say things that you want to say, and just, you know, humble yourself and keep respect in the relationship. I think a lot of times I've seen the couples that I've seen that kind of grown apart, you're not going to always agree, but if you can just make up your mind, I'm going to keep respect in this relationship. I'm not going to say things that I shouldn't say. And I think it just boils down to, you know, you're not always going to get your way. And I told the story about, I don't know if I can tell it as good now, but a good friend of ours, he's actually a minister, and they couldn't have a baby for years and years. They were just infertile, and they went through all the treatments and everything. And he was flying to India one time, and he said, God, it's not fair. He said, I go all over the world. I help other people, but my own wife can't even have a baby. He said he felt like God said to him, he said, it's because you're not treating your wife right.
Wow.
Well, you know, he's not beating his wife or anything. He's a nice guy and all that. But he said it's just the little things. He said he started talking about, you know, I got disrespectful. I was condescending. I was sarcastic. I was giving the cold shoulder. Not all at once, but just over time. He said, you know what? I made the decision to treat my wife better. And it wasn't a year later that she became pregnant and had a baby. So I think, you know, you check up on yourself. And, you know, it's easy over time to kind of let your guard down. But, you know, you ought to treat your wife, your family better than you treat anybody else. And, you know, I see some people out in public, man, they're nice as can be to somebody they don't even know. But boy, why don't you treat your own spouse, your own children better than you treat anybody else? That's who God's put in your life to love. And, you know, anyway, that's all I got right there, y'all.
It's interesting because pride doesn't allow you to see where you need to change.
Right.
A prideful and haughty spirit makes you a know-it-all. And we have to check that, because if we're going to have good relationships in our marriages and with our children and family, we have to be able to say, I'm sorry. We have to say, okay, I was wrong. You know, even if you have to come back 2 days later, you have to be able to check yourself. And I think that's what pride wants to do. I mean, isn't that why, you know, the devil got kicked out of heaven? He was so prideful, he wanted to be God, and he wanted to do what God did. He thought he was better. And, you know, when you think you're better than everything else, it's hard to learn anything. So I think that's a good reason, you know. The Bible says pride comes before the fall. Right. And, you know, and that's a serious thing, pride. And I just think that I know in my own life, I've had to go back and say I'm sorry many a times, and plead my case and explain why I was prideful. But you know what? It really feels good, because sometimes you have to talk that stuff out to understand. And so I think that's another thing.
I tell you, while we're on that subject, just as relationships, I'll tell you something about my father. So one time when I used to, you know, I used to do the television production. So we were, let me see if I can get this right. It was after the service. My dad came into the production area. This was at the other church. And me and Johnny and some of our friends were back there. And we were laughing. And the service was over, but we were laughing. Well, my dad came in, and he thought we were making fun of something in the service. And we weren't. But my dad got upset, and he said, you know, it's not right for y'all to be making fun. It's not right for you. And I looked at him and said, Daddy, we weren't. But there's about 4 or 5 of us in there. But he just was convinced that we were. Well, it was an evening service. So I got home. It was about 11 o'clock. My dad called. And he said, Joel, I'm sorry. He said, I blew it. I was uptight. He asked for the... Okay. Well, I cry so easy, y'all. My dad... My dad asked for the phone numbers. He asked for the phone numbers of all the guys that were in the room that night. I said, Daddy, it's fine. They know, doesn't matter. He said, no, I want to call them. I said, you want to call them tonight? Why don't you call them in the morning? It's midnight. He said, no, I want to call them tonight. Called every one of them that night and just said, you know what? I blew it. I'm sorry. You know, I was uptight, but you know, that spoke volumes to me, because you know what? Daddy was 75 years old. He was the boss. He can have a bad day, but you know what? No wonder God took him places that he never dreamed, and God trusted him with great things.
What a great example.
All right. I'm really happy, y'all. No more crying.
Vulnerability is so powerful in any relationship, and saying I'm sorry in a marriage or in any relationship is just pivotal in moving forward. I know you guys never have any conflict. I know y'all never argue, but just in case if it comes up for all of us, could you help us understand how you guys walk through and work through any conflict in what you say to each other?
Yeah. I think what we were talking about is vulnerability, and you make mistakes. Mm-hmm. I've learned it's real important to make more deposits than you do withdrawals. Because we're all going to make withdrawals. So you better get a lot of deposit in there so there'll be something to withdraw from. But yeah, we're both very opinionated, strong opinions, and we both think we're right sometime. But, at the end of the day, I think we want to do what's right instead of be right.
Right.
And what's right is our family and our household, and mostly it's to please God. And I have to tell you this, I have a very healthy fear of God. It's a healthy fear. I'm going to be the first one to tell you God loves me and He'll forgive me. But I do know when I know what to do and I don't do it. Yeah. And I want to preference this by saying sometimes I do it anyway. But you understand what I'm saying is it arrests my actions many times because I do have a healthy fear of God. And I don't want to get myself or plant seed that I'm going to reap later. And I don't want that seed. I mean, many a times I've said, crop failure, I don't want that seed. Forgive me, God. But really, I think we have to have a healthy fear of God. He wants to bless us. He wants to help us. Yeah. But when you blatantly know and you do it anyway and you keep doing it, that's a danger zone for me. So I think that many times that we just come at the end of the day and is God pleased with all this? Hey, I said something. This is why I said it. And I guess, Joel, many a times I've pled my own case, right? I'm like, I want to tell you why I was mean. Or I want to tell you why I was. But, that's my heart. So I guess at the end of the day, our temperaments are so different, but they go together well.
I don't like confrontation. So I try my best. I don't argue. I would rather just be quiet and walk away. And
that makes me so. No,
it says in Proverbs, avoiding a fight is a mark of honor. We always think winning a fight is a mark of honor, but you know what, really? And I know we have different personalities, so I'm not saying to be like me, but I do think that I would just rather we keep it respectful. We agree to disagree respectfully. I realize that we're not always going to agree. I think when Victoria gets upset is because she wants to convince me to agree like her. And I say, if that's the case, then I'll just say yes every time. But sometimes I don't. And so but you know what, we can be respectful. And, Victoria and a lot of women, y'all have a greater sense of discernment, and things that Victoria can see early on. And then I'll come back 2 months later and I say, you know what, you were right. It's hard to say, but I do it. But
I wish he would say that more often.
No, but I think it's just, Victoria, tell that what you're doing tonight. I hope about that box that's valuable and stuff. That's an important part about this. If you have a heirloom, that thing.
Yeah, if someone gave you something that was a precious treasure, a family heirloom, something that you loved and respected, you wouldn't just throw it in the drawer where you throw your keys or the junk drawer. You would take care of it. You would have a special place for it. You would check on it. And that's how we have to do with our relationships. We can't just throw words around. We can't just, throw actions around and think it's going to be okay. We have to take care of these relationships. They're precious. And, we don't want to damage those things beyond repair. And we don't want, early on, y'all are going to think I'm so mean, but I'm really not. I'm passionate. Early on, Joel is he's very sensitive. He's very loving. He's very kind, probably one of the kindest persons I've ever met in my whole life. And that's the truth. But I think he deserves a hand clap for that. But, it's as if God spoke to me and said, if you don't treat your husband right, then you're going to change who he is. And what I got from that was I liked the man I married. I liked everything about him. That's why I married him. I didn't want to say things or do things that would change his opinion or disposition toward me. And so I was very careful early on to handle those things with care. Joel will tell you I'm his biggest cheerleader through everything. I built him up and I love him because he deserves my love. And so, but early on, God spoke that to me when I was young bride. So I'm so glad I heeded those words because I can hear that like it was yesterday.
Wow.
And it was pivotal in my relationship to just really treasure him and love him for who he is and the qualities that he has. I don't want those qualities to change. So,
yeah. Can I say something else, Clayton? Long answer to one question, but yeah, I can say this. I wouldn't be half of who I am without Victoria. Yeah. She has spoken so many seeds of faith into me. 10 years before my father went to be with the Lord, we would sit on the front row Sunday nights when I wasn't up in the TV area. My dad would be up speaking at the other location, and she would nudge me and say, Joel, one day you're going to pastor the church. And that would make me mad. I would say, Victoria, I'm not going to get up there and pastor the church. I wouldn't know what to say. She'd say, oh yeah, Joel, just preach to them like you preach to me. She told me 10 years before, I would say thousands or hundreds of times, she told me she saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. And she was smart enough to call out the seeds of greatness in the people that God has put in your life. And I think sometimes we got enough people in life pushing us down. Why don't you push your spouse up? Why don't you tell them what they can become, your children, the people that you work with? A blessing is not a blessing until it's spoken.
Right.
A lot of times we think things, wow, Victoria sure is beautiful. I tell her she's beautiful all the time. Well, she's heard it thousands of times. Well, you may, even with a coworker, if they do good on a presentation, don't just think it, speak a blessing into them. Help somebody else. Here's what I've learned. If you'll help somebody else come up higher, God will help you come up higher. You are sowing a seed when you call out those seeds of greatness in your children and in your spouse. And I really think these days there's so much negativity in the world, probably more than ever with social media. And people can push people down. Be somebody that pushes somebody up. Push your spouse up. And I'm not saying overlook things, but they got more good qualities than they do bad qualities. You call out their good qualities. I like that. I heard too, Clayton, I don't know if I can get all this in, but you treat somebody how you want them to be, maybe not how they are right now.
Right.
You honor them maybe in advance. It's kind of like by faith, you treat them that way, and then they'll rise to that occasion, or they'll rise to what you're speaking over them. But if you're always speaking defeat, man, or even thinking it, but why don't you speak some life? And she called me a great pastor when I didn't think I could get up in front of people. She called out things in me, and I thought, Victoria, I have got her so fooled. I couldn't get up and take the offering, y'all. I was nervous to be up in front of anybody. But you know what? There are things in your spouse and your children that they can't see, but God's let you see it. So you can be the one to speak faith and victory, and who knows where God will take them. I really believe one reason I was able to step up and pastor the church is I'd heard Victoria tell me I could do it so many times before. So call out those seeds of greatness in the people God's put in your life.
That's so good. And right in line with that, you shared this at Spark a couple of years ago, the 80-20 rule. When in regards to your spouse, can you explain what that is?
Let me see if I can remember it. I think and I heard it from somebody, but I like it. It's basically every person. This is generic. I may not get it perfect. Every person has 80% of what you need. They don't have 100%. And sometimes we focus on the 20% that they don't have. Sometimes we leave the 80 to go get the 20 somewhere else, only to realize that other person only has 80% as well. So I think sometimes we're trying to get 100% from our spouse or somebody, but you have to recognize they're going to have 80%. Go to God for what you need, but don't fault your spouse because they don't have 100%, because everybody has 80%. And again, I think sometimes if you focus on that 20%, then you can leave that marriage, that relationship. You get over here and they say, well, he or she's got that 20%, but they got something else my spouse had. So I think you got to focus on the good things and don't expect somebody to keep you happy. Let God keep you happy. Go to Him for your approval. And I think that's just sometimes we're relying too much on other people. And I know we need good people in our lives, but you got to go to God for your value, for your worth, for your because your spouse, they can be the greatest spouse in the world, and they're going to let you down. They're not going to say certain things. And they're not. But you know what? You go to God and say, God, I know you approve me. I know you love me. When you're whole on the inside, then you can have a whole relationship.
I think echo that. That's amazing, because the truth is a healthy self-image is the best asset you could ever have. Yeah. Because when your spouse looks at you, you're a reflection. It reflects back on them. Mm-hmm. And so it's just really important that I've never depended on Joel to make me happy. Yeah. I depend on him as a partner, to be happy together, but not to fill those desires and needs that I can only get from God. So I think that's so huge.
So good.
So important. Haven't y'all enjoyed this? It's been great. We're going to have Pastor Victoria pray over all the marriages and relationships in just a minute, but we also want to let you know, whether you're single, engaged, dating, or married, we do something every Sunday night. It's online via Zoom. The information's on your screen. It's called our Marriage Connect. Great teaching, great place to connect with other couples, but we promise that it will give you strength in your marriage and give hope to your marriage as well. But before we finish, Pastor Victoria, would you mind praying over all the...
Yeah, I love that because, sometimes it's hard to think, do we need help?
Yeah.
I love the fact that you guys read books together. Now you have a career of helping other people, but, sometimes you just have to be the first one to ask.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one of the most appealing things, I believe, to a woman in a man is a man that leads his house spiritually.
Yeah.
A man that's willing to pray.
Yes.
A man that asks her, can we pray? That is the most appealing and the best thing, that a woman, could receive from the man in her life. So I want to encourage you, men, if you feel awkward, and sometimes you do, if you could just break through that layer and just begin to do that, it will make a huge difference in your marriage.